paranormal, UFOs, monsters, mysteries. You're listening to Talking Weird. And now, from a cabin deep in the Northwoods, your hosts, Dr. Dean Bertram and Jen Durrell.
Good evening, everyone. It's just me. No Dean tonight. He's having some issues with this sweet little girl. So since I'm winging it, I'm going to do a quick little introduction. So tonight's guest was born in London, England, and at the age of a young age, after a personal experience, he started to research the paranormal. He left England at the age of 23 and took his craft of investigating with him. He had ventures in Australia and New Zealand while he was living out there. Peter has been a paranormal investigator for over 26 years. He is a co-founder of the Canadian Paranormal Foundation. He is a documenting investigator for an ordained exorcist in Washington State. He is a producer of the YouTube show on the Paranormal Channel, We Want to Believe, and has recently published a book on his ventures called I Want to Believe, One Man's Journey into the Paranormal. So I am delighted to introduce Peter Renn. Hey, Peter.
Hey, Jen, that's quite the introduction.
You can tell it's not my introduction, but
no, it's good.
Still noticeable that I read it, but okay, so we're just going to go with the flow. I have read your book through and through, and I loved every bit of it. But I do want to touch base on something that really caught my attention was the first chapter, Fred. Do you want to kind of talk about Fred and what he is? And
yeah, so I grew up in London. It's more on the border between Surrey, the county Surrey, and South London. A small town called Croydon. Well, a big city called Croydon, but it was actually a part of Croydon called Addington Village. And ever since the early memories that I had, all I remember at 7 o'clock in the morning is just seeing this white glow of light called Fred, and it could basically come through one wall and just disappear and go through to the other. And this went on until we moved out of the place a few years later. That kind of triggered my interest in the paranormal more than anything else. And it was only me doing research on that actual area itself. There was an actual incident on the land where my house was actually built in regard to Henry VIII. That kind of correlated to that kind of activity that, I might have been putting two and two together, but and making eight, but it kind of made true to what exactly I might have been experiencing in regard to that white light. So, so basically it was at the time when Henry VIII was, he was trying to get a divorce from, I think it was Anne Boleyn. And he went to the Catholic Church and they said, no, we're not going to grant you a divorce for no reason or anything like that. So he went round and executed all the priests. And there was, at that time, at the back of where I used to live in Addington, there was a place called Addington Palace, which was Henry VIII's summer vacation retreat. And when they were excavating our houses in the early days, they found 4 priests buried in the foundations of our street. And so they basically took the bodies up. That it was basically through Henry VIII. He killed them and just buried them in shallow graves, unmarked graves. So they picked the bodies up and then they relocated them to the local church and they gave them a proper burial and stuff like that. But our house was slap bang in the middle of where the church was, where there used to be a pathway that used to go to the vicarage. Yeah. And it was kind of a tradition on Sunday mornings at 7 o'clock for the bells to ring in the church. So I you put two and two together. You're thinking, well, okay, could that white light be, an image of one of the priests walking
Yeah.
through my house, going to the church, or walking in the morning to ring the bell at 7 o'clock. But you're just putting things together, that kind of thing. But that lasted until we left the place, and that kind of spiked my curiosity more than anything else.
Yeah. So I know that was the first part of the book, but was that your very first paranormal experience, or was that just
that probably yes, that probably incited the very first most memorable thing. I've always had like the odd things going on when I was growing up, like as it explains in the book, when I went on the school outing, and when my nan passed away as well, I saw my nan there. And it's not just me kind of being emotional at the time, thinking I was seeing things. It was, a lot of the things that I saw and witnessed even at that age were things that other people witnessed as well. It wasn't just me thinking things up and stuff like that. So I've always had that sense of comfort of the paranormal since a young age.
Yeah. So with the orbs, which you mentioned, Fred was like an orb that just kind of walked through the kitchen. So was he a certain color? I mean, since you've investigated for, over 25 years.
Yeah.
Have you noticed anything with orbs being different colors? If there's a significant, if it's a type of entity, or is it? I don't know if you correlated it between an entity, interdimensional being, whatever, anything like that.
I think there's I think just basically an orb is just a projection of energy in relation to whatever's out there. In relation to evidence of pictures of orbs and stuff like that, I'm probably sounding like I'm contradicting myself. I don't put a lot of value into that, because it could be, anything natural behind it. It could be dust. It could be, it could be a bug, that kind of thing. So there's no way of defining whether a picture is paranormal or whether it is actually, a natural occurrence. So usually when in doubt, you throw it out, kind of thing.
Yeah. So that was your only orb experience then?
No, I had one. God, I had one probably about 7 years ago at the Colmont Hotel, which is also mentioned in the book. We were in the bar, and we were just sitting down, and actually we weren't investigating or anything like that. We were just sitting there talking about what we were going to be doing that particular night and investigating. And it was about 5 o'clock in the evening. It was daylight outside, and Carol, one of my investigators, got up and to go over to the bar to turn the camera on. And we're sitting there, and we just looked over, and there was this blue light that was just coming towards us. Like it was like the size of a golf ball, and it was following Carol. And I'm like, we're all standing there. We're all sitting there staring at this bubble, and like mouths open. And then Carol's like looks at us, and we're going. And then she turns around. She goes, "What?" Because the blue thing was behind her, and then Daniel, one of my other investigators, pointed out, and he said, "Look behind you." And he turned around, and the thing just disappeared.
Yeah, that's crazy. Yeah, I haven't personally experienced, because you mentioned a blue one. I've never experienced. I've had some orbs myself, but they were outside. But after my brother had passed away, my mom and his son were in there, kind of her little library.
Yeah.
And she had a little story. She's not one of those paranormal people. So it was enough to where she was really shocked by it. And she saw a blue light come in from the kitchen and just kind of float in where they were at. And it was just floating in. So she saw it and they saw it. So
it's one of those things, like orbs represent different things in different cultures, and different colors represent different things as well. But with not just with those two incidences, and what I've been researching with other people that have experienced similar things to me, not eye to eye, not on camera or anything like that. It just seems to be just a manifestation to me of energy, rather than specific details or characteristics reflected in color.
Yeah. So what about when you went to Australia? I saw that you went to Fremantle Prison.
Fremantle in Western Australia.
Yeah. Do you want to talk about that one a little bit?
Yeah. So I went out. I left England at 23, and I stopped off in Australia first. I lived in Australia for about 3.5 years, and I started on the West Coast. And I at that particular time, I just wanted. Hi, Dean. How are you, mate?
Hey, Pete, I'm so sorry.
That's all right, mate. No worries.
Keep telling the story about Australia. I was listening, and I'm from there, obviously, so I'm fascinated.
Yeah. So I the first landing point was in Perth. So I arrived there in Perth, and I didn't, as you do in Australia, you're on that all the time, drinking and stuff like that. And then I moved from Perth. I moved to Fremantle, which is I think it's about 30 minutes north. And I was talking to backpackers and stuff like that, and they said that there was a guy that was in the hostel knew the manager of Fremantle Prison. And I'm like, yes, let's get in there, stuff like that. So I went out and bought this. I went out and bought this secondhand tape recorder, and I went in there, and it was definitely interesting. Like Fremantle Prison, the experiences we had in there as well. Australia has, like, out of all the countries I investigated, Australia has has a different energy sense to a lot of places I've ever investigated. I'm not just saying it because you're on the line, Dean, or anything like that. I'm not stroking your ego or anything like that, but it had a different sense of energy in relation to New Zealand and Canada as well, like some places in the States as well. There was Fremantle Prison I investigated, and there was a place on the East Coast just north of Melbourne called just near Maui. Well, I can't remember the name of the place now. It's a ghost town, and we investigated an old post office there, and there was me and an established investigator out there from Melbourne, and we're in this post office, and we sat down. As soon as I said, "Oh, can you give us a sign, an indication you're here?" This chair that was sitting over the other side of the room just flew across the other side of the room. So we got up and just walked out, and that was it. It was just, but yeah, it's just crazy place for sure.
Oh my goodness! Oh, we can't hear you anymore, Dean.
You're on mute, mate.
Oh, okay. There you go.
Yeah.
I apologize. Now, I've been to Fremantle Prison, and so I was quite interested when I read in your book that it was one of the investigations that you'd undertaken in Australia, because it certainly is a place with a fairly. And I'm not as sensitive like you guys are, but even for me, it felt a little bit off when I was in that environment, to be honest.
Yeah, like Fremantle is. I'm not a sensitive or anything like that. I've just been. I don't believe I'm psychic. I don't believe. I believe that everyone's kind of sensitive to like spirits, but everyone has their own threshold in regard to how they feel and that kind of thing. And I think over the years, you get more tuned in to what goes on, or in relation to when you first start, kind of thing. But yeah, it was definitely an eventful place for sure.
Did Jen? I missed a little bit of the show when I was trying to settle my daughter and running around. And again, my apologies to both of you and to the audience. But I don't know. I don't think you covered it. But did you talk at all about some of your early experiences, the things that first made you aware of the other world? Because I know you said then that you don't consider yourself psychic or sensitive, but you certainly had quite a few experiences in your early life with things which could be thought of to be part of the spirit world, I suppose.
Yeah, I think personally that I think, like I say, I think that we all have that. Not psychic ability or anything like that, but I think we all have that ability to read to the other side. But like I say, we all have that different thresholds, and it might be something to do with my mum, because my mum was very spiritual in relation to Fred, like we were talking about earlier on, Jen. And she was the one that kind of brought me into it. She kind of cushioned me into the paranormal, just to say, there's more to life than what we have around us and stuff like that. So it might have been something that was kind of handed over to me, or at that age, she gave me a better sense of development in regard to what is there. So it kind of opened my eyes a lot more mentally to what's out there, rather than, dismissing psychologically what I shouldn't be seeing, kind of thing.
Yeah. And plus you were younger too, because when you're younger,
Yeah.
you're more impressionable and you're more open.
Exactly. Yeah, no,
So-
precisely. It could be that as well. But like I say, I'm not going to go out and coin like loads of money from people and say
Right,
that
yeah.
your Uncle Fred sitting in the corner of the room, give me $100 kind of thing.
Mhm.
No, Jason talks about that in the book as well, that he had
Yeah.
those experiences when he was younger. And you guys seem to have
No,
this
that's right.
incredible working relationship, both in the writing of the book, I Want to Believe, and in the series, We Want to Believe. And can you tell us a little bit about how you guys first got in touch and how that working relationship has evolved?
Yeah, it was kind of love at first sight. No, it was weird because Jason contacted, because at that time I was president of the Vancouver Paranormal Society, and at that time Jason reached out to me when I just moved to Kamloops, where I am now, and he was living in Kamloops as well. We were supposed to arrange to meet up with each other. I unfortunately got sick, and I had to move from Kamloops and move in with my in-laws because I had a liver transplant. And I moved away, and Jason joined my team. And then when I came back a year later, we finally met up. And it was just as soon as as soon as I met Jason, it almost sparked the excitement back into the field, because like Jason had the same interests as me in regard to the field, and he had the same outlook and perspective of the way we look at things as well. And it was just we're just riding that boat along together in a journey. And we started the show, which I had my boundaries, and Jason was totally respectful for that, and he was on board with that as well in regard to what kind of documentary we were going to do as a YouTube show and all the other shows that we do as well. And it's been good. It's been really good.
No, it's a show I always enjoy. In one of the early episodes, I think it was the first one, the Demon Jar, I think it was called. I loved how when you got the EVP, it actually said, I think it said demon or something, the voice, and you were, and we talked a little bit about this to Jason, and it's a point of contention between Jen and I, so I always have to bring it up when we have a guest on who's interested in these things.
Yes.
Jen already knows what I'm about to say.
I was going to ask a question about this too, but you beat me to it. Go.
Oh,
yeah.
No.
Okay. Hang on. I'm psychic. I know exactly what you're going to say.
Yeah.
Go ahead and say it anyway.
So, I tend to look at a lot of, not just spirit manifestation, but a lot of things we consider in the broader paranormal umbrella period as potentially demonic, or maybe trickstery, or maybe something out of a John Keel book or something which is lying to us and manifesting as something that mightn't be the root cause of the phenomenon. Do you have a take on that kind of perspective at all? Is that something you ever feel like maybe something's fooling you or presenting itself as something else that it isn't really during an investigation?
It's quite like the whole subject of demons and stuff like that. It's very it's not cut and dry in relation to me just giving an opinion and just being gospel. That terminology, demon and stuff like that, goes into different cultures and religions and stuff like that, and it means totally different things to different people. With me, with that subject, demon, I work with an ordained exorcist in Washington State. I've done quite a few remote cases over the last few years with him in Washington, and I've never actually had that piece of proof where to me it's that stereotypical demonic case where that they need to get an exorcist in and they need to perform an exorcism and stuff like that. It's always been hang on a minute, let's look at the broader picture. Is there something psychologically wrong with that person,
right?
Or is there something logical behind what they're experiencing and stuff like that? I do speak of one particular case that I had in the book, which rung a lot of bells in relation to things that were taught to me that are not portrayed on TV or anything like that, like the wording in Hebrew and the way that the way the girl's characteristic changed over the months and stuff like that. Were like, it just basically clicked with me. It's like, hang on a minute, there could be something more sinister behind this.
Yeah.
And but then, unfortunately, when I came back to Kamloops, they moved away. They disappeared off the face of the planet.
Yeah.
So I still haven't got that, that bit of proof yet for myself. I still carry on doing what I'm doing. I'm not searching for that validation because I'm here to help people, that kind of thing. But I'll probably be sounding a naive to say that I'm a total non-believer, but I think that 99.9% of the cases that have ever came out in regard to demons or that kind of thing, there's always been an underlying reason behind it that it's not paranormal. But I also don't believe in that genre of a demon as well. I think that it's just a misinterpretation of a negative spirit.
Yeah.
That's something else I really liked in the book was the chapter which talks about things that appear to be ghosts or haunting but actually have more mundane or prosaic explanations. And the carbon monoxide poisoning one, for example, is fascinating. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah. So that was there was actually two cases where that actually came up, and there were I was called to a case, probably about 22 years ago, and it was at that time I just went through plumbing school, so I knew the kind of telltale signs about gas leakage and stuff like that. And a team already went in there, and they came out and said they couldn't find anything or anything like that. So I went round there. I think it was a week or so after, and as soon as you walked into the place, you got that kind of it was like a blanket going over your face. I know you can't smell carbon monoxide or anything like that, but there's certain characteristics to it that you can, like it kind of pinches like your nostril hairs and stuff like that. And it felt like that when you walk in. It's that kind of musky smell. And as soon as I walked in there, I knew straight away that there was some other issues in there, and it was just the way that they were as well. Like the family were in there, they're all like tired and exhausted and stuff like that. And it just rounded it up. And then I got the mirror. I saw the gas appliance there. I got the mirror, and it steamed up, it fogged up. And that's classic 101 carbon monoxide. And it was like, you guys need to get this sorted out. So they did. And that actually happened a second time as well, where it was very much close for them actually having something more, perhaps something more serious than paranormal instances happening to them as well, where the actual, it was a water heater that was in a bedroom. It just wasn't never maintained, and there was like black staining all the way up the wall. And as soon as I walked in, it was like, whoa, just turn it off kind of thing. And it's just things like that. It's a silent killer. And I guess, it's just people have, in regards to paranormal, there's a lot of teams and investigators out there that don't know about, the natural reasons behind what could cause people to think that, things are paranormal in relation to that.
Yeah, I found that really interesting. And you might have saved some people from becoming spirits, to be honest. With discovering that. So.
Quite possibly. Maybe.
I should let Jen ask some more questions anyway, because I just came in and started to ramble.
No. I do have a question about one of them. You had one family that was having some crazy activity, and there was a point where you gave them advice because you weren't able to get there on time or something, and you told them just to ignore it, and it kind of backfired. Like it was going all the way up to the house, like pounding on the side of the house, went to the roof, and went down to the other side. And do you remember that one?
That was Charmaine's. It was a case that I couldn't get to straight away because she lived about 2.5 hours away from where I lived at that time in Vancouver. And it was very difficult to get that time away, especially when you're working 9 to 5, 5 days a week and stuff like that, to get that time to go up there. And most of the times, a lot of the investigations I've been on over the years, you just learned like the only way that people can deal with paranormal experiences is by themselves. That is the only way that they can get rid of things like that. 99.9% of the time, it's themselves. Like they're the ones that can get rid of it. You know, you don't need to get a psychic in. You don't need to do cleansing or anything like that. You're the only person that can get rid of it. And automatically, when Charmaine got in contact with me, because she moved to the place in Harrison, and it was just a lot of things going on in there and stuff like that. And the first thing I tend to tell people, if I can't get it straight away, is just don't acknowledge them, don't engage them, don't talk to them or anything like that. And it's not, you know, it's not me sounding like I've come out of a fairy tale book about, you know, it makes them more powerful and, you know, let's run under a lightning gun and stuff like that. But it's that acknowledgement, and that makes it kind of worse when people start engaging active, spirits and stuff like that. Things start spiking up because they're talking to them, and all of a sudden, they're sitting there watching TV and they're talking to Fred the ghost, and and it things become more apparent because they're used to it mentally, and it might not be paranormal, but the heating comes on. Oh, it's the ghost. It's things like that. Your brain automatically thinks that everything's paranormal, and it's just that kind of psychological way of telling them just to think away from the paranormal. And just look elsewhere. Don't acknowledge them. Don't engage them, and just kind of look away in that sense. But yeah, Charmaine's was probably one of the most memorable cases for sure since I've been in BC.
Yeah, that was a very interesting story. I was kind of shocked by that, because I know I usually, if I have anything that's kind of odd and weird, I'm really good at ignoring it. So for me, I think if anything is ever around me, which sometimes I feel it, I ignore it and it just goes away. I have never had any the crazy stuff you see on TV, which you touched based on that in the book too. With it's a demon or anything bad like that. I've never dealt with anything like that. I've just watched it on TV and movies. So.
Yeah, a lot of it, unfortunately, is theaterized on TV more than what it is in real life. I talk a lot in the book about, at the paranormal experiences I've had and other people have had as well. But yourself, Jenna, being a paranormal investigator, it's a complete lottery when you go and investigate. To get that piece of evidence could take you months, if not years. That piece of evidence that you undeniably cannot find a logical explanation behind. That takes months and years to find in relation to any building or any house that you go to.
Yeah.
I like some of those earlier old school low tech techniques and methodology that's talked about in the book when you first got into paranormal investigation back in the UK. Are there things from those days and that you miss when perhaps the arena wasn't so high tech?
It's actually funny you say that, Dean. I'm actually starting to step back. I went out and bought. A friend of mine's donated a tape recorder, and I'm gonna start once COVID, the gates open up and we're allowed to start going out and investigate more places. I'm gonna go back to the basics of where I started from. But obviously, I'm not going to go out and buy a disposable camera and stuff like that. But I'm going to still use a digital camera. But I'm going to use a lot more of the older techniques I had, like tape recorders, bells. Like I used little fishing bells with fishing line and stuff like that over door handles and stuff like that. It's things like that are foolproof in relation to trying to scrutinize if you're trying to find a logical explanation behind it rather than using technology and stuff like that.
Yeah. Well, I know with me, when I've investigated, I've had issues with EMF detectors. Like, when you first watched Ghost Hunters back in the day, that the K2 was like the thing. And I remember I started off with that and never could figure I never could figure the darn thing out. And just the last year or two, I've been using it, and it's just like, it doesn't match. Like I've done the flashlight before, and they seem to work. and but the EMF won't go off. Or I've noticed if you have it flat, like sitting out like this, it gives you positive or not the correct. I mean, it just starts going off for no reason. And then if you have it straight up, it seems to work better. And I don't know what the difference is with that. I mean, have you noticed that with K2s that they're?
I haven't used the K2 in probably about 6-7 years. Like if you get the K2 as well and just shake it, it starts lighting up as well.
Yeah, it does. Yeah.
It's a piece of crap.
Okay, I'm with you on
that. With pieces of equipment like that, specifically if we're searching for EMF and that kind of thing, we tend, I tend not to use pieces of equipment like that because you can't control the environment you're in. Like you're not aware of the variables that could set that off naturally. So, for example, if I'm doing an investigation of your house and I'm sitting there, I've got my K2 meter, and all of a sudden, just out of no reason, it just spikes. There could be 10 to 20 natural reasons why that went off, but you can't see it. Like it could be a Wi-Fi, it could be, it could be someone walking past with a cell phone that's going off at that particular time. It could be. It could be Wi-Fi. It could be, it could be a number of things like car radio or radio, that kind of thing, walkie-talkies that can set it off. When I investigate, I tend to use more things that you are aware of the environment, that you're aware of, that you can control the environment you're in while you investigate. So I tend to use more like temperature because you know that there's, if, for example, if you're in a room where you've got the door shut and everything's like tight in there, and then you've got the thermometer in there, and all of a sudden it drops 4 degrees. You're like, okay, what could the natural reasons behind that be? You'll know straight away. Did someone walk in through the door, or did the heating come on? Things like that, you know, because you can feel it. But with things like EMF, it could be, there's 1,001 reasons what set that off. Why stare at an EMF meter for an hour where you could be missing Casper the Friendly Ghost behind you?
Yeah, that's true. Have you ever tried, the new thing now is sensory deprivation and the Estes method or anything like that? Have you tried to use that yet? Have you heard of it?
Yeah, no, that has been out for quite some time. But that was even before it was called the S3 method, before it became on that show, before the guy apparently invented it. It's been we've tried it before, and there's been other people in the field that have tried it before as well. There's been certain correlation. There's been certain things that have come out of it that have kind of made sense.
Yeah.
But it just it's a lot of it is, and it's not in relation to spirit box or anything like that, but it's just in relation to the questions that people have asked at that time. You get generic answers back, like yes, no answers and stuff like that, rather than asking for specifics. It's never, it's never been tested with me in a certain way where, that person's asked specific questions to get specific answers, like who's the house owner, what's their name, kind of thing, and you get, where you're shooting for that one name rather than, how many people were here, and you think, I thought I heard a 5, and that the guy, spurts it out, kind of thing. It's things like that. It could be just more of a coincidence than anything else. So I guess it probably needs more of a better testing ground for me to pass judgment on that particular method more than anything else.
Yeah. A lot of the shows that I watch way too many shows, by the way. When they show it, it all seems linked together. Of course, it is a show. It's a TV show. So they've got it linked to where it looks like it's completely legit. Now, I don't get to investigate like most people do, so I haven't really got to dig into it that much. But I find it fascinating if it actually does work.
We use the spirit box a lot. I'll start right from the beginning in relation to radio frequencies and stuff like that. We did an investigation about 10 years ago in a commercial site in Richmond, British Columbia, and there was it was a Filipino family that owned a printing shop, and they said that they could see there was a boy that used to run around upstairs. So we set up all the cameras and stuff like that. And we were there was a glass, and one of my investigators was in over the other side of the glass, and Daniel walked into a room, and I could just about hear him through the glass, and he was going, "Hi, my name's Daniel," and he was just talking to the air. And he goes, "Don't be afraid. We're we're here to ask you a few questions and stuff like that." And just out of nowhere, our microphones, the walkie-talkies, we all heard a child's voice say "hello" back at us, and it just totally blew us away. But then we got this. I got the original Frank's box. I don't know if you remember the Frank's box or anything like that. That was the first one, and that was a pile of garbage. Then I got the SB. Is it SB8 or SB9?
There's an SB9. I used the 7.
Yeah. So it's I think it's the SB7, a little black one.
I have the SB7. I think there's an SB9 and 11 or something like that now.
So I bought that, and it basically. My computer's just made a funny noise.
Uh-oh.
It's a ghost.
You're frozen. You're frozen too for some reason. There you go. Wait a minute.
Sorry,
it's thinking about it.
Am I back?
Yeah, you are.
Yeah. So when I got that spirit box, and it just basically sat in the bottom of my bag, and then one particular day, one particular investigation, one of my investigators pulled it out and said, "Yeah, let's just use it." And we were in a residential case in just outside Vancouver, and it was the funniest thing. And it was skipping through. It was going.
Yes.
And I'm sitting there going, "Oh my God, this is like really." I'm going to tell him to turn it off in a minute. It's really, really starting to annoy me. Mm-hmm. And the more and more it was going on, there was nothing coming through. And he was like, "Oh, did you hear that? Did you hear that?" And I'm like, "No, I didn't hear anything."
Yeah.
Then all of a sudden he turns around and says, "Can you name one of the investigators that's in the room?" And it stopped scanning.
Yep.
And there was a break in the frequency, and it was like a frequency spike.
Mm-hmm.
And we heard a woman's voice say, "Scott."
Yeah.
And Scott was the investigator with me, and it just stopped dead. And he said, "Oh, my name's Scott Williams. Can you say my name?" And it went, it stopped again. It went Scott Williams, like that, and we were, we were like totally blown away. And then it scanned through, and he said, "So what's this guy's name?" And he's pointing to me, and the voice said, "Peter," and we're like.
Yeah.
And that's not the last of it. So we were like, so what's the name of the woman that lives here? And the client was in the front room, and it was only a small 1-bedroom apartment. She was in the front room on the couch, and she could hear us like going in the bedroom, and she could hear the voice coming through. And the voice said Megan over the top. And it, like I say, it was a frequency spike. It wasn't like a radio scanning through or anything like that. And it caught Megan, and it just went, and she just bolted into that room. Like, what the fuck?
Oh, wow.
It was it was just then after that. But it kind of, it inspired me to do further research in it. And I know there's a lot of skeptics about there and stuff like that. But when me and Jason use it quite a lot, but when we use it, we look for that frequency spike.
Yeah.
Like we capture that frequency spike in relation to the evidence. Mm-hmm. And we've had, we're able to block out a lot of the static as well with some of the equipment we use and some of the software we use as well. Once you eliminate that static, it becomes more bearable in the ears. So you're not going.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
But we've had, we've had Jason got told he was a prick twice, which the ghost was right about.
Yeah.
There was
at the dollhouse.
And there was there was the time after that we were in there as well. We got the guy's name, like full name, who was who actually purchased the land, like in the late 18th century. His name come through on the spirit box as well, like that frequency break. It wasn't just like, you could hear music going in the background or anything like that. Mm-hmm. You could hear his name in its entirety as well. And we just had like things like that over the past couple of years with us as well, where there is definitely, I'll probably get like emails after this and stuff like that, but there is providing you know how to, work it properly and you can
Yeah.
dissect that static out of it, there is a lot to it than, what meets the eye. I think people just tend to throw it to one side because it's annoying. That's all it is.
Yeah. I recently put up a haunted gin, and my second one was actually at one of my favorite places that I go to. It's Belvoir Winery. And I ended up recording it because I thought I had my camera on, but I didn't. But my voice recorder was still recording the whole SV7. And so whenever I had something that was like a spike or whatever that caught my attention, I tagged it and then I would enhance it. So it's on there, but I would be interested to see whether or not you think that is legit or if it was just, coincidence.
So it is dependent on how fast there's probably about three different issues, not issues. There's three different factors in relation to when you actually capture something on there. It's typically the frequency spike of when it jumps up. It's not that, that constant scanning all the way through. It's when you get that point where it jumps up and it jumps out at you kind of thing. And then obviously there's there's a correlation to the question as well, like in the intelligent answer you get back as well. That's a factor in it as well. And the third is in relation to the quality of it as well.
Yeah. I think I've had more luck with just the voice recorder. But
me too. I mean, it's just another thing. We you go back to basics. You use voice recorders and stuff like that. It's foolproof. Yeah. Unless there's mechanical things that go behind it, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
You mentioned before you were undergoing an investigation for a haunting of a Filipino family, which I guess makes me want to know, have you in your various investigations when you've dealt with people from different cultures found that there tends to be a different expectation or a different phenomena attached to different cultures?
So, good question. I have investigated for a number of different cultures, and each one of them have their own different beliefs. They have their own beliefs, and it's more to do with what their spiritual, not spiritual, their religious beliefs. A lot of that's kind of embedded into what they should believe in the paranormal, and a lot the responses you get often differ depending on their beliefs. I think the most troublesome ones that I've had are actually from white people in relation to the people that are, they've been non-believers and, their dads taught them to, everything's black and white in relation to what they should believe and stuff like that. And then they get that moment where that moment where something's happened and then they can't explain it. And it just screws their whole mindset over. But with other people in different cultures and religions and stuff like that in the past, it's always been, I've helped them, I've cushioned the blow in relation to, what they've experienced. A lot of them accept it. A lot of them are kind of, there was one particular one with an East Indian family where the guy actually drove him to alcohol because he couldn't accept it mentally, what was going on. It's different ways, but I always find that it's always probably the white people that are more that are, they're more kind of responsive to things like that.
I know that in the book there's a couple of examples of experiences that actually seem to disturb you, or there's not a lot, but there's a couple where you say I was actually almost, crapping myself, or things which actually had a massive impact on you. Can you tell us about maybe, one or two of those most impactful experiences that you've had when you've been investigating?
So, I've been investigating now 26, 27 years, and I honestly think, regardless of how long you've been doing this, that moment where you had that experience, it's still going to affect you. And, you go online and you go to these chat pages and stuff like that. And, the most common one that I used to put on my previous Facebook page was a question to all the people that have experienced things. How did you react? And a lot of people say, oh, I didn't do anything. And I said hello to it and things like that. But I was going to say bollocks then, but bullshit. It was it's human. It's basic human reaction to be fearful against that because it's not normal. And I've been with investigators that that claim that they puff their chests out and they say that, oh, I've experienced this and experienced that, and I've been with them when something happens and they just straight out there, like straight out the door. But with me, with my experiences, I can say sometimes I've been in situations where I might have been scared, but that threshold of being scared might be kind of overtaken with the fact that I actually get excited as well at the same time. If that makes sense, it kind of it makes your blood pump. It's like, oh God, this has happened, and I react like each time I've had those experiences. I've reacted different ways, like the time in the Orpheum Theatre, which I think it's mentioned in the book, where I ran at a shadow figure that was standing in the doorway, and other times when I was investigating a basement in a hotel that used to be owned by a famous biker gang in Vancouver, I couldn't even walk through the doorway. Like literally, arms were in the doorway like that, and I wanted to walk through the doorway, but I just couldn't walk through, and I was pushing it's like something out of a cartoon where I was trying to drag myself through the door, but I couldn't. And I was looking around to see whether there's a camera looking at me or anything like that. and I ran up the stairs.
I know you said in the book, when you first started doing it, I think, if I recall, I think sometimes it was so stressful that, like, when all of us are under a lot of stress, you'd actually get a cold afterwards or something. I think maybe that's mentioned in the book. Do you think you've had, for doing it for so long, do you think there's been a physical and or a psychic toll being involved with this for so many years now?
So yeah, when I speak about it in the book, I like the first few times, and I think it was the first and second time I actually went out and investigated. Like, my nerves were so far on end. Like, I basically made myself sick after, not like physically puking and stuff like that. I had a cold and felt like crap and stuff like that. But we get a lot of thing. We get a thing, and you could probably testify to this as well, Jen. It's called a paranormal hangover the next day, where your brain is just like, I might as well have just gone out and just drunk a whole bottle of Jack Daniels the night before, because my brain is just like complete mush. Where you just sit there in a chair and you're just like, you stare at it all day. But it's because you've gone out that night and you're using parts of your brain that you're not normally used to using, and you're sitting there and you're not so much on edge, but your senses are at their peak for that X amount of time, and it just knocks the wind out of yourselves.
I can imagine.
I know I get I've had it so bad to where I've been ill the next day. But I know sometimes when I go into locations, you just, like when you're mentioning about going through that door, maybe you kind of, I don't know, sensed what kind of entity was in there to where you felt like you were not allowed in there, or were you? I don't know. I've had senses like that where I really want to knock on the door and like, hello, can I come in? Because I feel like I'm not allowed to go in there and I have to ask.
I like in relation to that doorway, I have no idea to this day why I couldn't walk in there. I absolutely no idea. I didn't feel creeped out. It's just my body wouldn't let me go in there, but my brain wanted me to go in there. It was just the weirdest thing ever.
Yeah. You had an experience. What is it? The Outwood Mill? Is that the one where you had really cool experiences there? Outwood Mill. When I was actually, I was talking about that to a friend of mine at school. So we were. I don't know to. It was the junior school. So what would that be in North America? I was probably about middle school.
Grade 6 or 7, something like that. Anyway,
that's middle school or junior high school. Yeah.
Okay, and So we went out on a school trip to an old mill. I think it dated back to like the 15th century or something like that. And it used to be occupied by monks. And it's funny because my friend read my book, and he remembers what happened after that happened, and he remembers me going back to the school bus. But anyway, we did a tour around the mill. We've gone inside, and there was a woman standing there in period clothing, and she was like demonstrating how they crush wheat and stuff like that. And then I'm standing there. I'm at the front of the class, and because I was probably one of those that misbehaved the most, so everyone had to watch me at the front. And I'm standing there, and I always see was this guy walking past me, and he was dressed up like a monk.
Yeah.
And he came out of a doorway, and I can't remember whether the doorway was opening or anything like that. And he walked through. He walked past me, and I'm looking at him going, wow, I'm thinking, he's got a good costume on and stuff like that. And then he walked into the doorway of the next room, and you could see him standing, like it was about 2 or 3 feet away from the doorway. And he walked in there, and I was concentrating more on him, on what I was concentrating on the woman. And he pulled out he pulled out what looked like a stool, but there was nothing there. But it was the way his body was dragging it out, and he was doing something up above like that. And then he stood up on top of something, and he just fell. And then I could feel like, and I remember this day, and I felt like that crack of his neck when he snapped his neck, and he was just standing there. And I honestly, I burst into tears, and I ran outside, and the teacher said for me to go and sit in the bus afterwards, that kind of thing. But it's funny because a friend of mine on Facebook who read the book said, I remember you coming out of there. I remember you going and sitting on the bus.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, it was crazy. It was crazy.
It must have been tough for somebody at that age as well to experience something like that. Goodness.
Like I say, it was helpful to have someone like my mum there, because it was more, she was my cushion in that respect. I didn't experience lots when I was younger. I wasn't like the kid out of Sixth Sense. I see dead people everywhere, that kind of thing. But it was like the odd thing here and there. And there was a certain connection when my nan died as well, where we were sitting there watching TV, and my dad came back from my nan's house, and she basically fell over and hit her head on the side of the bedroom table, and she died of a brain hemorrhage. And he went up there and came home, but we didn't know anything about her or anything like that. So I'm sitting in front of the TV, like, as you do when you're a kid, you're laying in front of the TV and your mum and dad are sitting behind you and got a pillow, that kind of thing. And we had these big sliding doors on the left-hand side. I looked over and I could see my nan there. And I turned around and I was like, Nan? Like that. And I looked over and I looked at my mum, and my mum's like that. She's looking at her as well. And my dad just like burst into tears. And then I looked over again, and she was gone. And that's when they told me later that she passed away. It was just little tiny things like that, and
So your dad saw her too, or
no? My dad was like he was a total black and white guy. He wouldn't, he wouldn't see anything beyond what we would try and tell him. Like my dad was always working. Like he was never around to see Fred or anything like that. It was always me, my mum, my sister, and the dog. Even the dog saw Fred as well. Yeah. And but he was a total non-believer all the way through.
Yeah. Well, that's a good, defense mechanism, I guess, or to where you don't have to really kind of experience it. Because I noticed you also had some interesting experiences too with alarm clock or seeing something afterwards. I don't know if you want to talk about that or not, but I found that really fascinating.
Yeah. So when my dad died, the alarm clock, like he was off work for I came back from New Zealand, and that's kind of what dragged me back, because my cousin phoned me up and said, look, your dad's in a bad way. He was kind of drinking himself to death. And I came back, and my dad hadn't worked for probably a couple of months, and disconnected his alarm clock because he had no schedule anymore or anything like that.
Yeah.
And I went to work and I tried to stop him to stop drinking. Tried to tell him to stop drinking. Of course, he didn't. And then he died. And I came back from the hospital. As soon as I walked out the hospital, he passed away. And it was when I was on my way home, my auntie phoned me up. It was a nurse at the hospital at the time, said, Dad's passed away. So I got home, and you cried and sobbed.
Yeah.
I sat on the stairs, and I got to the top of the stairs, and I was sitting there and I was crying, and all of a sudden his alarm clock went off in his bedroom, and I knew it was been disconnected because my dad pulled it out. And I looked over at his bedroom, and I could see what looked like my mum and dad standing there. And it might have been more of a comfort thing for me than anything else. That your brain might be thinking, okay, let's make a good thing out of this, kind of thing. But I could see my mum and dad standing there. They weren't, clear face or anything like that, but it was kind of like their shadow form of them standing there. Yeah. And then they just disappeared. But that alarm clock freaked the shit out of me.
Oh yeah.
I literally threw it down the stairs. And threw it in the bin.
Yeah, that is kind of scary.
I think that's something we have in the West or in the modern world, or in both maybe. When you were talking about maybe it could have been a comfort for you or something else, we tend to have this very firm delineation between what has to be somehow scientifically provable or it's just all in our heads. Well, I think there's other cultural traditions and other ways of looking at things like the spirit world or anything in the broader paranormal universe, which mightn't require that very either scientific explanation or scientific dismissal. I think there might be a middle road which is more useful, where our own subjective experiences are somehow part of it and they shouldn't be dismissed. I don't know if you have a take on that kind of alternative way of looking at reality or not, Pete?
I'll be honest with you, Dean. My opinion of the paranormal has changed so much over the years based on the evidence I've got. I do believe in parallel universes and stuff like that, just based on the things that I've encountered, but the evidence I've got. I also believe as well that a lot of what we hear in EVPs and stuff like that could be our own mind projecting what we there's a group of people together and they all want to hear one thing coming through. I believe that kind of thing. I think it's defined as ESP or something like that. I believe also as well I believe a firm believer in 99% of hauntings are actually residual in relation to timestamps. The stone tape theory with things being constantly played over and over again. But then there's that 1% that is intelligent, where no idea where it comes from, where you've got that person that's passed away and they've come forward with specific information that only they would know. And we've gathered that as well. And that's the 1% where it just blows your mind. It's like, how can they be there? It's just crazy. That's a good thing about the field though as well. At the same time, it's just so interesting, and changing your opinions and your thought pattern about things. It just makes it beautiful. It's a great thing to be in.
Yeah.
Do you see, and this is probably my last question, then Jen might have something else, but do you see going forward any trends in investigation, or do you imagine that the field is going to change directions or travel on a fairly similar path? Or what's your kind of vision into the future of paranormal investigation? So
I think over the last decade we've gone, and I say we, North America and the rest of the world's kind of followed suit. We've kind of gone into that sense of TV, where everything what they see on TV is how we should animate ourselves into being an investigator. And it's not,
Yeah.
don't get me wrong, it's not a bad thing to a certain respect, but it is a bad thing for other reasons as well, in the respect of what we're actually there to do. And it's created a lot of people out there. And I may sound that I'm contradicting myself because we've made a YouTube show and stuff like that, but a lot of people want to be like Zach Baggins. They want to be like ghost hunters and stuff like that, where they go out and they just totally disrespect clients and venues and stuff like that. And it just makes the people that really want to find out how and why, it's given them a really hard time, because it's just roadblocks everywhere now in that respect. And I don't see it getting any better. It's just the way the field's gone now. And the more of the TV shows that come out, more of them regurgitating the same crap over and over again. It's gonna get worse. It's gonna get worse before it gets better, for sure. And and I might, I sound like moaning and stuff like that. I sound like I'm whinging and whining. Whining limey, but whining palm. That's it. But it's just the way that the field's woven now, and that's one of the saving graces about when Jason came along. He came along at the right time, where I needed to be on that path where, just me and him and the rest of our team just move forward and disregard everyone else. And that's kind of where we are. We're just moving forward. We make friends in the field and stuff like that. We make the right friends. We don't, and we just move forward in that way. And I do data logs. I collect data. I look for trends and stuff like that. I do experiments and stuff like that. And there's probably a collective, only a few people that actually do that. They're in the field, and they're the kind of people that I like in regard to having around me. But I also like the same people that have the same mindset as me as well, that that they want to know why or how. That kind of thing.
Definitely. I've noticed, especially in the field like you were talking about, it's mainly I don't know if it's for the money, for the fame, whatever it's for, but not everybody, but quite a few do it for the fame,
popularity.
It's
just a tempting thing.
Yeah, so it's really hard to take any of that seriously. And that's one thing I liked about your book, was that you don't do it for money, and that you're there to actually help and solve the problem. You're not there to say, "Oh yes, you have a haunting," and then leave.
Bye.
So, later you get to deal with it.
Just driving up road. No, there's a lot of bad eggs in the field, and there's paranormal investigators and psychics and stuff like that as well. That's kind of I obviously, with my own spiritual beliefs, I believe there are some legitimate psychics out there, but they're very, very far between. And granted that they whatever they come out with, sometimes not accurate, because they're not going to be a continual machine of spurting out accurate information. But unfortunately, because of what's been glamorized on TV in regard to psychics, there's you could put zero trust into them.
There's a lot of psychics. I mean, like, was it the last 2 years or whatever, I started adding a bunch of paranormal friends, and I couldn't believe the amount of psychics that there was on.
There is, and I actually speak of one in the book that was legitimately accurate in the regards to the things that she said about me. And there's things in there that she mentioned my grandfather, and there was there's certain things about my grandfather. He was missing a finger, and there was a bullet in his head, and during the Second World War, and it was just little things like that no one else will know about. So that side of it, I totally believe. But on the other side of that, when I was a part of Vancouver Paranormal Society, I had psychics and mediums with me. I actually caught one psychic going through letters of the client in the kitchen once to get some information from that. So it's So it's it's definitely swings and roundabouts in that respect.
Well, you, Peter, and Jason Hewlett both seem like two very good eggs while we're talking about so many other bad eggs. Can you tell us how people listening or watching can get A, your book, I Want to Believe, and B, see your series, We Want to Believe?
So our book is on Amazon. It's about $17, I think, US. It's I Want to Believe, One Man's Journey into the Paranormal. We are working on another 2 books at the moment, which should be released, should be completed by mid part of 2022. And we have the YouTube show on the Paranormal channel, which is on YouTube. We Want to Believe, and we've got there's a couple of other shows on there as well at the moment that we've just started as well. There's Hunting the Haunted, which we do case studies of alleged hauntings throughout the world. And there is another show which my brain's gone totally asleep at the moment, where we actually interview subject, and I hate using the term subject experts in different realms of the field as well.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for coming on the show. You were fascinating, and thanks for bearing with me while I had my number of little crises with my adorable but mischievous daughter. And
sarcasm, hey? It's like grinding his teeth while he's saying that.
and you keep it weird for us, Peter. You do such a great job at it.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Cheers, mate.
Yeah. Thank you for joining us tonight. If you're interested in checking out more episodes, you can find us at talkingweird.com. If you haven't already, please like the show on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Talking Weird Podcast. Make sure you never miss an episode by subscribing to Talking Weird. We're available on most podcast platforms and YouTube. And if you do enjoy the show, please leave us a review. Dean and I would really appreciate it. Until then, stay safe.